Hi, I'm Willie. Welcome to my channel. Thank you for being here. I appreciate each and every one of you. And in this video, what we're going to do is we are going to set up UniFi. This is May 28th. So this is the latest general release software. If it's not, we will update it. And this setup is going to work for a home or a small business. And I'll kind of explain what we're doing as we go along. So let me show you the equipment that we're going to be using. So right here I have a UDM SE that goes down to the Switch Pro HD, and then I've got my UNVR down here. I've got an access point up here. I've got an AI key, and in this video we're going to get our network set up the way we want it, and then in a follow-up video we're going to set up Protect, and we're going to take a look at some of the new PTZ cameras and that horn that everybody's interested in. So like I said, this will work for a home, a small business. So follow along. If you've got questions, let me know, but let's get to it. All right, so I plugged everything in, and I have my UDM SE uplinked to the internet via my non-lab network. And then the switch is plugged into the UDM with a DAC cable for 10 gig connection. And then I have the NVR plugged into the switch. If your UniFi console is out of date when you get it, don't freak out if it takes a little while for it to boot up, because they do upgrade the firmware on boot depending on how old the firmware is. It may do an upgrade automatically when you fire it up. I don't know if the UNVR did that or not, but the default subnet, if there's no conflict with your ISP, is going to be 192.168.1.0/24. So in this browser, I have gone to 192.168.1.1, and you can see that I have my Dream Machine setup screen right here. So we're going to call this, it's going to be WHT Lab SE is what I'm going to call this. And I like to give the consoles unique names. I have access to a few consoles, so sometimes when people just leave those default and then I'm trying to find them, it makes it difficult. So I always like to give the UniFi OS console a unique name. We're going to go next. And right here, what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to bind this to my UI.com account. And it's going to do two things. First of all, it's going to enforce multi-factor authentication for me to log into this device, whether I log in locally or whether I log in through unifi.ui.com. Now, if I bind this, I'll be able to log into this no matter where I'm at. As long as I can get to unifi.ui.com, I can manage this. You don't have to do that, but I recommend you do, even if you don't manage it that way, because it will enforce multi-factor authentication even if you're logging into the IP address. So real quick, I'm going to bind this to my account and I'll be right back. All right, so once you bind it to your UI.com account, if you have other UniFi OS consoles that have backed up, it's going to ask you if you want to restore a backup that's stored in your Ubiquiti account. I do not. I'm going to continue without a backup. It's going to start our speed test. We'll let this run. This should only take a few seconds. So you can see my downloads at about 400, my uploads at about 40. I actually have gigabit by 40. I know the 40 upload is a little weird. Now, you don't have to let it do this speed test. You could skip that. There is a skip button down below. And if you don't see it because my head's over it, the next and cancel and all that buttons are under my head down here. So we're going to go ahead and click next. And now it's going to set up UniFi OS. And it says it's got about a minute left. I'm going to pause this and we'll be right back. All right, so the setup is complete. It says you can now manage your UDM SE from anywhere. I'm going to go ahead and go to dashboard. And we're going to proceed. And now it's going to ask me to log in. So those credentials that you had, you can enter those here, or you can also go to unifi.ui.com. You can do this either way. Neither way is wrong. Both ways are right. So I'm going to go ahead and log in here, and then once the console gets pulled up, we will continue our setup. So one thing I do want you to notice here is even though I'm logging in locally to the IP address, it is asking me for this MFA code. And that's because we have it bound, right? So over here it tells us we got 2 devices detected. So we're going to come over here to UniFi devices, and we're going to see what we've got going on here. You can see that our UNVR says it's connected at 10 gig. I don't know if that's the case or not. But what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to adopt the Pro HD 24 PoE and the U7 Pro Max. And then while those are adopting, we're going to go ahead. Well, we'll wait a second. I don't want to get the cart too far in front of the horse. But once these are adopted, what we're going to do is we're going to go in. We're going to set up a guest network and set up the options for that on the wired side. Then we're going to set up an IoT network. We're going to set up the options for that on the wired side. Then we're going to set up a camera VLAN, and then we'll set up a voice over IP VLAN. I'm going to let these get ready, and then we'll be right back. So while we wait for the U7 Pro Max to update its firmware, you'll notice that after this Pro HD switch adopted sees the proper uplink, that the experience or the uplink on the UNVR, because it's plugged into a 1 gig port, is now showing up as just gigabit Ethernet. So if you've got a bunch of stuff plugged in and it's not adopted and it's showing you what you think is incorrect speeds, once you get everything adopted, it should straighten out and it should show the proper speeds. Okay, so our U7 Pro Max is upgraded and it is getting ready. So that should pop over here in just a second. Then we should see what the experience is or what the connected speed of that is. I think I've got it in one of the PoE++ ports, but we'll see what it says here. And you can see we've got all this activity because we were downloading firmware. We haven't really done anything yet. That'll be ready here in just a moment. Okay, so it is adopted, and this is the experience over here, and then the uplink. I just wanted to clarify that because I think I might have said that backwards, but the uplink shows you the actual uplink speed, right? So the uplink on the UDM SE on the WAN side is gigabit. For here, for the switch, we're on the SFP Plus at 10 gig, and for the Pro Max, we are at 2.5 gig. So these are set up and they're kind of factory, fresh out of the box. Firmware is all up to date. We're good to go. So what we're going to do first is we're going to come over here and we're going to go to security, and we're going to go ahead and upgrade to the new zone-based firewall just to go ahead and get that out of the way. Now, if you want to revert that after you've done it, you have to go back to the automatic update. So this is all default as it is right now. All right, so we're going to go over here to networks. I'm going to leave the 192.168.1 for the base network. There's really absolutely nothing wrong with that. There's just not. If you don't want people on that, then assign your networks and your ports and your Wi-Fi, your SSIDs to other VLANs. That's really all it is. And make sure you disable ports on your switch that you don't want people using. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to call this, we're going to do guest, and it will be on the internal zone. And I'm not going to auto scale it. I'm not much for that auto scale. We're going to leave it a Class C, 254 usable IPs, but 249 being handed out by DHCP. Down here, we're going to come to manual. We are going to leave the VLAN ID at 2. It matches one of the octets up here. I'm happy with that. What we're going to do on this is we're going to isolate this network. And when we isolate it, only devices on the guest network can talk to each other, and we'll fix that with the SSID for the Wi-Fi side of it. But we are going to allow internet access, and since we could have all kinds of people using it, we're going to go ahead and put the family content filtering on there. We're going to uncheck multicast DNS. There shouldn't be anything on there that we need. we're going to go ahead and add this network. The next one we are going to add is going to be our IoT. And believe it or not, this is actually going to be set up just like a guest network, where we isolate this network from being able to talk to anything else. And when we use these checkboxes, it's setting those rules up on the firewall automatically. We don't have to do anything else besides this. IoT, we are controlling the devices that are going to go on IoT. We're going to leave the content filtering off because we don't know where those command and control servers are or how they've been classified. They could get caught up in that. I'm going to uncheck multicast DNS. I'm going to click add. So now we have our default network, which we could rename to main network. And I'm going to uncheck the auto scale on that main one. And we are going to leave multicast DNS there. We'll apply this. So now we got VLANs 1, 2, and 3, with 1 being by default the untagged VLAN. Then what we're going to do is we're going to create another network, and we're going to call this Protect, because that's where our NVR and our Protect cameras are going to go. These are going to be internal. I'm going to uncheck that auto scale, go back down here to manual. Now, I am not going to isolate this network initially. I do have more trust in the Ubiquiti cameras and NVRs that they're not doing anything crazy. And so I'm not going to isolate that so that I can get directly to those once they're moved. I'm going to go ahead and leave everything else at default. Now, on the main network, or wherever most of your people are going to be, let's talk about that real quick. You could turn on this content filtering, or you could run an AdGuard, a Raspberry Pi. You could point to an external service to do DNS filtering. So if you need some content filtering, this does work. Just know that you can't get granular within the content filter itself. You can do some things with apps to limit things, but this you don't get to choose. It's what the third-party service is filtering for you automatically that Ubiquiti uses. Here I'm going to leave none for content filtering on this. Then our last network is going to be voice over IP. We're going to uncheck auto scale. We're going to do manual. And then we will isolate this network. We're going to uncheck multicast. And we're going to click add. So we've got our 5 networks. So the next thing we need to do is we need to decide how are we going to do the Wi-Fi. The most efficient way for your access points to run is to have the least amount of SSIDs, because the more SSIDs you have broadcasting, the more resources that are being used up on the access point, and they become a little less efficient. So I'm actually only going to have 2 Wi-Fi networks. I'm going to have one that's IoT that is going to be 2.4 gigahertz only. Let me back that up. I'm going to have 2 that are broadcasting. And it's going to be IoT, and then it's going to be WHT Wi-Fi. And we're going to use private pre-shared keys. And based on the password that we give out, that's the network that people are going to be put on, right? I guess we could, if we wanted to take it a step further with that guest network, we'll have 3. I'm not a huge fan of this, but 3 is definitely better than 4. So, and actually, let's look at our network. So we really only need a main, a guest, an IoT. So we really only need the 3. So we'll go ahead and do the 3 for this purpose. I do encourage you to limit the number of SSIDs that you have broadcasting if you can, either using Radius or private pre-shared keys. If you have questions about that, you can reach out to me. So we're going to do WHT main. We're going to put in a super secret password here. It's going to go to the main network. All broadcasting APs are going to be selected. I only have the 1 for now. Under advanced, we're going to go to manual. We're not going to do any of the Hotspot 2.0 stuff. If you want to see a video on that, let me know, especially the Passpoint stuff. Kind of interesting. If you own a business, you can offload cellular data to your Wi-Fi and get paid for it. So if you want to know about that, let me know. We're not going to do the enhanced IoT. We are going to leave all 3 bands on here, and we're not going to use MLO. We will leave band steering on. We're not going to do client isolation. I don't have multiple access points, so we're not going to do fast roaming, but we are going to do the multicast enhancement, where that will take multicast traffic and convert it to unicast. So it's going to make things a little bit easier on us. And then we can do the multicast and broadcast control. And just so you know, DHCP, so if you're using a third-party gateway and you're doing this, DHCP does use broadcast, so you're going to have to make sure that you have the MAC address of your gateway that's handing out IP addresses. Otherwise, your DHCP is not going to work. So we do have the exception that is the Lab SE here. Everything else we are going to leave at default for now. A lot of this stuff, don't touch it unless support tells you or you're on the phone with somebody who's troubleshooting. Otherwise, just leave it alone. So our main network is now done. We're going to go ahead and add Wi-Fi network. We're going to create another new one. We're going to call this WHT IoT. We're going to put in our super secret password here. Network, we're going to drop this down to IoT. We're going to hit manual here. We're going to uncheck the 2.4, or we're going to leave the 2.4 checked and unchecked 5 and 6 gigahertz. And if we use this enhanced IoT connectivity, it limits this Wi-Fi network only to 2.4 gigahertz and turns on some special compatibility settings. So we're going to select that. And we don't care if our IoT devices really talk to each other. And we are going to turn on this multicast enhancement down here. And everything else we're going to leave the same for the IoT. Then the last one we're going to set up is going to be the guest. Guest, we'll put in our super secret pre-shared key here. We're going to drop this down to the guest network, go to manual. We are going to leave all 3 bands on here. We'll do some band steering, but here we're going to do client device isolation. So that means that the devices on the access points won't be able to see each other. And we're going to turn on the multicast and the broadcast control there. And we're going to leave everything else the same. We're going to hop back up to our IoT network and turn that multicast and broadcast control on. A lot of your IoT devices, if they are using an app and you can control them from anywhere, you don't have to be by them on the same network. They're talking to a server outside of your network, and the app is talking to a server outside of your network. So you don't need to be able to talk directly to each other. So now we've got our 3 main networks set up. Both here we've got the 5 networks. Here we have 3 Wi-Fi networks set up and ready to go. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to security and we're going to go to protection. And what we're going to do here is we are going to turn on the region blocking. We're going to block both directions, and by default we're going to block China. And sorry if you've got cheap not cheap, but IoT devices that have to talk to Chinese servers, this will block that. And we ran into that with someone who had a lawnmower. You block China, you can't use the lawnmower. So you just need to be, aware of that. Down here, we're going to turn on intrusion prevention and detection. We're going to notify and block. Now, typically when I turn this on, I let it sit and notify for 2 weeks. We make sure that we're not blocking any legitimate traffic, and then we go ahead and do the notify and block. Now, if you do run into things being blocked, you can create exclusions to those when you find those in your logs. The other thing here is you can have all of your DNS sent out encrypted. We're not going to deal with that at the moment. We're going to go ahead and apply those changes. That's going to provision our device. The next thing we are going to do is we are going to come in here and we're going to do a Wi-Fi speed limit for our guest. And our guests don't need any more than 5 megs down and 5 megs up. Should be plenty. Now we're going to go back over to our Wi-Fi, back over to our guest, and we are going to find the option that lets us change that. Where'd they put that? Let's see here. Wi-Fi speed limit right here. We're going to drop this down, hit guest, and now your guests are only going to get 5. We could probably get away with doing that on the IoT as well, depending on what you've got. If you've got security cameras and things like that, they may need more than 5 megabits. So your mileage may vary on that. All right, so this is our base setup. The other thing we could do is we could set up a VPN server. And if you're going to do this, I do suggest either WireGuard or OpenVPN. This is going to allow you to connect to your network remotely. And if you've got a NAS, or you've got some other device internally that you want to work on while you're not there, or you want all your traffic while you're traveling to come back through your network and make it look like you're surfing from home, you could do that. If you want to see that setup, let me know. All right, let's go over to our UniFi devices. You can see our U7 Pro Max is still provisioning those new changes that we put out there. But what we're going to do is we're going to see if we can get our UniFi NVR to get an IP on that Protect network. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into our switch. We're going to go into the port manager. Right here you can see port number 1 is our UniFi NVR. So we're going to click on this. We're going to label the port UNVR. We're going to drop this down to the Protect network, and we're going to hit apply changes. Now the other thing we might want to do, since this is not a trunk port like the access point, is we can block all of the other VLANs except for the native VLAN. It's usually a good idea to do that. So we're going to go ahead and hit apply changes now. So it's going to provision this port over to the Protect network. And of course, when we set up Protect, we're going to put a static IP on our NVR, but we'll see what happens here. Everything says it's provisioned and ready to go. We're going to go here. Let's disable this port and re-enable it real quick. And see. Oh, disabled. They keep moving things around on me. We're going to go to disabled and apply that. Let that port go disabled. Then we're going to bring the port back up and see if our NVR grabs a new IP address. Hopefully it will. So our port's showing disabled. We'll come in here, turn this back to active, drop this down to Protect, block all, apply changes, and we'll see if this grabs a new IP when that port comes up. Sometimes it takes a minute or two for these to update on the screen. What's interesting here is I have a green dot now for online. I had an orange one before. I do find that interesting. So it doesn't show a new IP address yet, but what we can do is we can go into settings and networks. Yep, and I don't see any leases on the Protect side yet, so I might have to reboot that. Let me do that real quick. I'm just going to reboot the NVR. All right, so our NVR grabbed the IP address 192.168.4.51. So we're going to go ahead and set this up real quick. And we're going to call this WHTTUNVR. Going to agree. I am going to sign in to UI.com real quick, get this thing bound. I'll be right back. Now you'll notice that this is the same screen that we had when we did the UDM. So all this, the UniFi OS stuff works very much the same. So don't be afraid of it. I'm going to go ahead and get this put in here. See if it comes back and asks for a backup. And I am going to continue without a backup. And it's going to ask me what my preferred storage policy is. So select a redundant level. Half of the disk or one disk is fine. We'll go ahead and hit finish. And it's going to go ahead and set this up. At this point, we're going to, once this is done, we'll add a static IP address to it. and then our base network is going to be complete. So as soon as this comes back, let's take a look at this. So it's updating, so it's going to take about 5 minutes. Let's go back over here. I do want to get the static IP address on it before we end this and get this base set up. So while this is going, I'm going to pause this. We'll be right back. All right, so this particular UNVR is several versions behind. I'm not going to go through the upgrading, but basically if you're on an older device, you come into applications, you go to the UniFi OS and click update. I'm going to have to do that a few times to get this up to date. But I just want to set, for now, I want to set the static IP. So I'm coming into console settings. I'm going to go to static. I'm going to set my IP address to 4.2, and then I'm going to set my DNS server to 192.168.4.1. I'm not going to use a secondary because if my UDM SE is down, then my internet is basically down, right? So my NVR doesn't need to get out to the internet at that point. I'm not using the SFP port on this, so I'm going to leave that at DHCP. I'm going to hit apply changes. And at this point, we now have a fully configured UniFi network system with our VLANs, with our Wi-Fi, with some security, and we are ready to move on to Protect. So I hope that you'll join me in the next video where we set up UniFi Protect with some cameras, and then we take a look at the PTZ and the horn and all that good stuff. If you've got any questions, excuse me, if you've got any questions about this setup, you can ask them down below. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, comment, and share. Follow me on Twitter and TikTok. Those links are down below, along with affiliate links, a Patreon link. And if you need IT consulting, if you need someone to check your setup or bounce ideas off of, or to help you design a new network, re-architect an old network, if you need voice over IP, storage, security, the networking, whether it's wired or Wi-Fi, if you need best practice documents set up, all those things, head on over to willyhow.com. Fill out the contact form that's on the front page, and someone will be in touch with you as soon as possible. Come on over to community.willyhow.com and start a conversation about this. Once again, I'm Willie. I want to thank you for joining me. Come back for the Protect videos, and as always, I'll see you in the next video.